As everyone knows, most of the time they're not working, they're not very productive, and it's unfair to the millions of people in the United States who are in fact working hard from
Oh, Donald Trump. As I record this, it's the third week of his second term in office, and the man is literally on fire. Okay, I shouldn't say literally, excuse me. The man is on fire, though. Just every day, he's dropping something new, and I love it when he says things like this. They're not working, these federal employees. And it's true. There are so many federal employees, they've done studies, who spend huge portions of their day just on Reddit and other websites, posting up. There's subreddits. If you don't know Reddit, please don't check it out. It's a revolting website, or a lot of it is. But there's all these subreddits. They're completely melting down now. Devoted to and manned by federal employees, because many of them are worried about losing their jobs, and rightly so, because the vast majority of them probably should lose their jobs. They're doing completely nonsensical, made-up work, which contributes no value at all to society, and certainly not to America or Americans. So, watching Donald Trump talk shit about him is absolutely brilliant. Let's get into this clip, which is Sky News Australia, and their guest is Douglas Murray.
Joining me now is one of the finest thinkers of his generation, the author of international bestsellers, including The Madness of Crowds, The Strange Death of Europe, and The War on the West, Douglas Murray. Douglas, really good to see you again. Thanks so much for joining me on the show. I want to start with Donald Trump's issue. He's warning to federal employees that if you don't return to work by February 6, you'll be fired. This is what he said.
As everyone knows, most of the time they're not working, they're not very productive, and it's unfair to the millions of people in the United States who are in fact working hard from job sites and not from their home. As federal employees, they must meet a high standard. They're representing our government, they're representing our country. If they don't agree by February 6th to show up back to work in their office, they will be terminated.
He's offering buyouts to those who opt to leave their jobs with 7 months' pay. Douglas, this president is not mucking around. How critical is it to have federal workers actually back at work and actually doing work?
Well, it would be nice, wouldn't it? In America, like in Britain, and I'm sure Australia, the last residue of people who pretend to be really terrified of COVID are federal employees and civil servants and the like. Many of them seem still to have an extraordinary fear of the coronavirus or something like that, because otherwise, why are they not at their desks? Most people had to return to work after the pandemic, but it's amazing how federal workers, civil servants and others almost get these sort of cushy deals where at best their work week was sort of flipped around, where you had a couple of days sometimes in the office and then 5 days in the garden at home to recuperate from it. I think that we all know that this is one of the great boondoggles of all time. It's high time that federal workers did return to the office, and it's quite right to say, if you're not going to show up to work, then guess what? You don't work here anymore.
Yeah, I agree 100%, but I would just take it another step further. Why make anybody come back to work if the work they do is completely useless anyway? Which I think, from what we've seen from DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency so far, instead of trying to it looks like their approach is, let's not make the jobs more efficient, let's just get rid of a bunch of jobs which shouldn't even exist in the first place. There's no point making something that shouldn't even exist more efficient. That's pointless. Just get rid of it. And they are just slicing and dicing right through the federal government. It's spectacular to watch. I'm shocked. I am literally shocked that Trump is keeping this campaign promise. It's beautiful.
I agree. In the end, you've got to foster a good environment. You can't do that when you've got half of the workforce still at home doing goodness knows what. Now, let's talk about Donald Trump's one flag directive, whereby only the United States of America flag is authorised to be flown or displayed at US facilities, both domestic and abroad, and in US government content. Douglas, I've got to say it's bizarre it took an executive order to get here, but it is the sign of the times we're in. In your view, what does this directive represent, and how will it help unite America?
Yes, I wrote about this in my column in the New York Post the other day because it's so interesting, as you say, that it would need a directive from the president to correct this. In recent years, and particularly since 2020, there's been a massive upsurge of people everywhere flying a whole array of flags. And sure, I mean, anyone can fly whatever flag they want, but federal buildings, government buildings, that's a different thing. And particularly since 2020, federal buildings, embassies abroad, and much more have not been prioritizing the flag of the United States of America. They very often decided that it's time to fly some other interest flag. The BLM flag made quite a few appearances, a whole range of others, most prominently, of course, the so-called Pride flag, which, as I said in my piece, went from being a sort of perfectly okay rainbow design some years ago to being, of course, this very ugly thing with a triangle and a circle in the middle, and also stripes to represent black and other minority people, on the weird presumption that if you added a black stripe to the Pride flag, you would have black people represented. And as I mentioned in the piece, who exactly do these people think were represented by the yellow stripe or the bright red stripe or the blue stripe in the original Pride flag? Nobody really knew what any of this was about. It all just got, this social contagion got going. And before you knew it, this flag celebrating, for instance, the right of people to not care about sex, which was one of the bits that was added, which was the asexual bit of the flag, that suddenly became an enormous priority, asexual pride. And American embassies were flying this very ugly a new flag from their buildings. And of course, all of that stuff, as you know, and many people viewing know, is just divisive nonsense. I mean, you know, the United States of America, the flag is meant to unite people. It's not meant to be that a nation has to subvert its national identity to whatever gender or race identities. You know, everyone's meant to come under the unity of the one flag of the country. As a great unifying message. And so, yeah, there have been a lot of radical activists who've come along in recent years who said, no, everyone needs their own flag, a special flag for every person. And it's quite right, I think, that Trump has said, no, actually, you know, we swear allegiance to the flag and it's one flag. And nobody's rights are infringed or anything like that. It just means that federal buildings and embassies abroad are going to be flying the flag of the United States of America, which is what it should have been all along.
Yeah, it's just a sign of how far, how deep the rot goes, that federal buildings in America and abroad, so embassies, consulates abroad in other countries, were flying the Pride flag and the BLM flag and the tranny flag and all those other things. What on earth? How was that even allowed in the first place? The fact that it actually became something that they were doing that in itself is a huge red flag, pun intended. It's a huge indicator of just how deep the rot goes. You know, yes, I'm very bullish on what Trump is doing right now. He has literally, he has been on fire in the first 3 weeks of his second term in office. But just undoing this kind of thing, like, okay, forcing embassies not to fly the gay flag or pride flag anymore. Yeah, that's good. I agree 100%, obviously. But there is decades worth of stuff to undo. People forget that. We can't just undo the latest, most outrageous advances made by these lunatics. We have to undo decades of it. There is lots to undo before we will get anywhere back to any sort of normal situation. We can't forget that.
Absolutely. As I said, I mean, it's extraordinary. It took an executive order just to get to that. It's such a simple concept when you think about it, really. Now, in the last week, the ICE task force has done incredible work across America, arresting hundreds of illegal migrants. And now Donald Trump has signed the Lake and Riley Act into law, requiring law enforcement to detain illegal aliens who commit theft and violent crimes. Have a look.
I'm going to sign this in honor of Lake and Riley. Come on up here, some of the people that we love that have been so instrumental. Okay?
Douglas, Donald Trump is setting the pace for the world on how to crack down on migration. You're from the UK, where migration is out of control. What can UK Labor learn from Donald Trump?
My suspicion is UK Labour are going to learn very little from anyone. It's one of their problems. But yes, I mean, I wish they would take some notice of what is happening in allied countries for the better and for the worse. But, you know, what Trump did there is very, very interesting. The Lake and Riley Act is named after a young American woman who was brutally murdered by an illegal migrant to the UK with many previous convictions. And even the symbolism of that is very important, because the people objecting to the forcible deportation of migrants think that they're sort of burnishing their liberal credentials. You know, there are officials, Democrats, of course, who in recent days have been opposing ICE moving in and getting career criminals out of the US who shouldn't be there anyway. But you know, it's one thing to sort of pretend that it's all just about the rights of the illegal migrant. But Trump is reminding people, and there's actually American citizens of all backgrounds have the right to also be thought of as well, to be able to live in neighborhoods that are as safe as they can be. And for that to happen, the federal government has to take a view about career criminals breaking into America. And
Yeah, exactly. All these bleeding heart liberals, and I know a lot. My entire extended family is nothing but bleeding heart liberals of some sort or other. They're always thinking about, the rights of the criminals, the rights of illegal aliens, the rights of people halfway around the world. What about the rights of their family? What about the rights of the people in their community, in their city, in their state, in their country, Americans? What about their rights not to have to suffer from additional crime brought in by illegal aliens, not to have to suffer from the social upheavals caused by mass migration into their communities, not to have to suffer from their children not be going to schools where there are very few, if any, other Americans, not to suffer from all these things. That's basically the conservative message, a proper conservative message. They look after their own people and keep things working the way they've always worked, not suddenly want to be do-gooders and do good for people who have no relationship to their own family or their own extended family, i.e. the community and country. That's really the issue here. But anyway, I think I'll stop it there. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like this kind of content, please do like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.